We are building the laptop store project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. Previously, we have seen how we can, store a laptop, let's say in a dictionary, have all the relevant specs covered, and now it's time to move on and start to think about the store's inventory. Now, typically, a store won't be built on a single model. There will be several models of laptop. And as we discussed, we are capturing specs for one laptop in a dictionary. Logical sequence of thinking leads us to a conclusion that, look, if I want to store the entire store's inventory, a good place for me would be to consider a list of dictionaries. Now, we will talk about this in some detail as to what we are trying to do here. And that's what. But the broad idea is that we will create a list of these dictionaries to sort of be a laptop's inventory. Now, before I start writing any code whatsoever, I want to give you a pictorial view, a sort of bird's eye view of what is it that we are trying to do here, because once that is clear, the code starts to flow quite naturally. On the other hand, if let's say this view is not clear, as to what we are trying to do, it can get quite confusing because you're going to move between dictionaries and lists quite a lot here, right? So the idea is very simple. Basically, we have a list called specs. Now I represent this as a list because that's a square bracket. So now we have created this list previously. All the laptop specs are being created from this list. So, this has, for example, brand, the price, the CPU, and so on and so forth. Now each laptop becomes a dictionary and we are storing this inside a list, which is our inventory. Let's call it the laptops list. This list here is a list of dictionaries. What that means is that, well, look, each item on this list is actually a dictionary. A little bit confusing, but think through it, very logical. Lists are versatile, lists are powerful. Previously, we have created lists, for example, with turtles. Here we are creating lists with dictionaries. Each of those dictionaries represents a certain laptop. Now you remember, each of these being a dictionary, the keys for each of these come from the specs, as we have seen. In fact, we are creating this using the from keys command. But let's think a little bit more. We need laptops from different brands, different CPUs, and so on and so forth. One of the ways we could solve it is by saying that, look, I'll create multiple lists. I will have a list of all the brands that I support. Maybe another list for all the CPU types, maybe say, W Intel, W AMD, and so on. For a list for all the prices, so I'll have lots and lots of lists, which I can then go and let's say pick these, let's say these items from, right? But it turns out that the same, let's say goal of running multiple lists, choosing from them can be done a lot more concisely if we use a dictionary. And I'm going to do that here. I'm going to create a dictionary called masterdict. Now this dictionary has keys which are related to the specs that we are interested in. And the values of this dictionary are all lists. Now, again, like I said, go slow, think through it, because once this picture is clear, you will find that the code is actually very, very logical. So what are we trying to say here? Well, remember, inventory is a list of dictionaries. These dictionaries get their keys from this list called specs. Now, what I'm saying is that, okay, look, let's create a master dictionary here, which contains all the possibilities that can go inside the values of these laptops. These dictionaries. So what does it mean? For example, every laptop has a brand, but the key that I'm interested in is brands, because perhaps this could be, let's say, W Dell, W Lenovo, W, let's say, Acer, W Asus, W HP, and so on. Models could be maybe A, B, C, whatever, CPU could be perhaps, let's say, W Intel i5, W AMD. RAM could be 2 GB, 4 GB, 8 GB. So these are all lists. And these keys, notice, are the plurals of this, because, it's kind of like saying that, look, every brand comes from one of these brands, which is a list. So this is kind of like, a little bit more concise way of doing this, rather than creating all these lists separately. By using a dictionary, they come under a single data structure, which makes it quite, let's say, nice to use, right? Quite comfortable to use. Now, basically where we are going is that we are going to create one more dictionary. We have this dictionary called specs, which is brand, model, CPU, and so on. We are going to create from this a dictionary called masterdict. So like the master specs, Notice brand, there is a brands. Model, there is models. CPU, CPUs. Logical and sort of sensible, because like I said, model will for every laptop will come from one of these models. RAM for every laptop will come from one of these RAMs, and so on. Given this, the problems we are going to solve, in fact, once this whole big picture is clear, it's actually quite nice. We are going to create a master dictionary whose keys are strings with an S appended at the end of each item of the list specs. And then we are going to populate this master dictionary, each key of this with a list. In fact, it turns out that we can also do this in a little bit more exotic manner. What we can do is to create a new list from the list specs. We can use the map command for this, which basically works on every item of the list. So that will be like from brand to brands, price to prices, CPU to CPUs, and so on. And then using this new list, we can create the master dictionary using the from keys method. We will in fact look at this too. I hope this was interesting to you. In general, if you think learning programming this way by building activities that we can relate to, if that's something that appeals to you, look at our website www.ybyte.in because that is how we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.